Kuna huraba kugira ngo nabagereke mwana woyine ka business nabane benda usasure babarire ngo entase yawe yo kuboyine bakugeragere se baje ngo usasura senteze buri mwaka so nyoko nachura na senere wabukana yo ni nerge tunguka ya government eche nayega kumanya ngo no business so oyino kubana obara kumanya ngo wano oyino echo kusohoza oyino kuchandika necho kutasa ukuchandika ukamanya kuko seme business yawe kuko seme kubana oje maintain ingaje bangambara mwenye no kubana insasura emitwale ebiri umwaka kana bongo kubansobora gitaro kujya no kukaka batwariza je munonga batogesa so nyona ngo nagira nti kansa sore nagira kansa sore myaka ibiri nasasura papa nasawut papa rawo myaka ibiri wiki brasta kohireza ko bana busaswire bintu bigendo miso.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Amazina gani wanyika sime Jamusoni nkora mu district ya Kitagwenda mutawo nijiba kwetandara abandi yaho nara imotoka ya basi ya revenue ene girango n'abantu kuja kuba registeringa kurango bafuna tin number ninga kufuna urundo heza na nantine chengo mafuna yabanjango nchonda neke mfune papa na tanga bampandika ndanga muntu yanje kuna iko nama kunanga kwandikisa narabeno banjango kano kugirikira bandikira ka sente ngani kandi nantine kuna imbasaba ni bishenga fa kuno igare zinyo takamanye ko kana nyine narabampe chipapura so dafutanga kusasura just to here zasana to basafuna offices na muntu wansa basako banamanya igare ni chakoba abantu abinya mamayo ni bira ko mu gempa nganga tinka kuno Kitagwenda n'abantu abinjinora bayiko kubara motoka bayikinga bayisheka bamangurija kwakwati so ntene buhereza cyo ngo jango mu offices ziri hihi hano na muntu ne waburi yari gumucyaro aje yibuzo amango musoro gwa kusana na nguzankai kandi gumuyamba ki kandi nikarunja kako basaguboramo.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Amazina ganya watefedero ko tumusabe ndi business mani umurientara tore town council zeni ndio mshokuzo wa spare parts hardware nyema moyanjo okusanga ni to basi ya URN iza itekege tabanya Uganda batayi bitu abo khereza umusoro gwihanga turetero kufuna ni to buhereza ko abantu barukutunga niza honanye kwetegereza ko bakwereza umusoro gwa URA tebento kuhora tebetagumanya bakira nk'ikintu cyaka kandi ikintu cyaka cyanzizomanya twatafitegereza twabanza kusima ubuhereza bwanyu no kubanza kusomesa umanye kuza kuhera umusoro nasima ubuhereza bwanyu ko kunarikaho mwamwatwegise.
Uganda Revenue Authority reminds all taxpayers to file their monthly returns and make all outstanding payments by the 15th of every month. Please comply to avoid penalties and interest associated with failure to file returns and payment of these taxes. For further clarifications, call us on our toll-free line 0800 117 000 or email us on services@ura.go.ug. Please ignore this message if you have already complied.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
A step-by-step process on how to file returns online. How to file a pay-as-you-earn return. Go to the URA web portal www.ura.go.ug. Click on Login. Provide your login ID and password. On the left-hand menu, point on e-returns under the column for original. Select Pay as you earn. Click here to download Payee Return Form. Save the template to your preferred location on your computer. Before filling out the template, click on Enable.
Cold one at that, but I hope you're all doing well wherever it is that you are. We are live and we are having this conversation now on the Live Tax Lounge. Of course, some of you who are digital enthusiasts, you either purchase some items online, and specifically, I'm speaking to services. There is a chance, for instance, that if you've been buying some Facebook ads, you've noticed a message that is sent to you by Facebook informing you about your honorable tax compliance, specifically to the tax head of VAT. That shouldn't shock you, because a couple of months back, an announcement was made speaking to the introduction of the VAT obligations on non-residents who are supplying electronic services to Uganda. And of course, there are quite a number of entities that were captured in that new arrangement. And the fact is, today, compliance is happening. Now, we have two friends in the studio who are here to help us appreciate that conversation much, much deeper. And these are experts from our Large Taxpayers Office. And it is a J&J collaboration. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to give them an opportunity to say their hellos, and we start this conversation. Mubutongole. You are live on the Live Tax Lounge, and this is the platform where we get to hear from each other about elements that are very, very critical concerning tax compliance in Uganda. I'll start with a lady. It is still much the month of the ladies. Jolie, if you can come in, greet the people, tell them about yourself, what you do here, and a brief of what it is that we are here to speak to.
Okay. Thank you, our viewers, and thank you, Solomon. My name is Jolie Mutesi. I work with URA in the Domestic Taxes Department, specifically the Large Taxpayers Office in the International Tax Unit. I've been in URA for about 8 years now, and I've been in the International Tax Unit for about 5 years. And yes, we are the unit responsible for implementing this VAT on digital services provided by non-resident service providers, because these people do not reside in Uganda. So as the unit that specializes in international taxes, we ensure that even non-residents or multinationals that are operating outside the country but earning or operating or providing services in Uganda are able to comply with their tax obligations. So today we're here to talk about the digital services and the VAT obligations, and we hope that you'll be able to understand this topic.
Thank you so much, Jolie, for that powerful introduction. Jesse, over to you.
Yes, good morning, Ugandans. Good morning, viewers. My name is Bazira Edward Jesse, working with the Uganda Revenue Authority as well, and also as well in the International Taxation Department or unit. Today's conversation has been long overdue, as Solomon rightly said, and we're here to share with you, to update you, to let you know that actually we're trying to drive compliance beyond the borders of Uganda to benefit our economy as Uganda as a whole. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, J&J, for making time and for gracing the show. At this point, I would just like to inform the viewers of the Live Tax Lounge that this being a highly interactive show, if you have a question, please just get in the chat room, just get in the chat box and send that question. You can raise your hand at any one point, or you can just get into the Q&A and you drop a comment in there, and we shall be able to take that question, and J&J are here to eat those questions, you know, if I can use that word. And I'm a straight shooter myself. And I'm also an ardent consumer of these digital services. And if there is someone who wants to know exactly what's going on, that person is me. And my very first question is going to come to you, Jolie, and it's a question of the scope. What is the scope? When you say electronic services, exactly what do you mean in this context?
Okay, thank you, Solomon, for that question. And that's something that so many people out there want to understand. What services are you covering? What are you looking at? Do we pay for everything? Do I pay for just accessing Facebook? I remember so many Ugandans were up in arms when they were informed about this new obligation. Said, oh, now URA is going to tax us for accessing Facebook, for accessing any online platform. But that's not the case. So what we are targeting here is services for which you pay a fee. So it's not every service. It's not like when you get your phone and access Instagram and post your beautiful pictures, they're going to charge you. No. It's only for services that you pay for. So what are these services? Online adverts, if you advertise on any of these platforms, let's say you had put up an advert on Facebook, they make you pay for it, then we'll have to pay an extra charge of VAT. Are you purchasing software online? Are you purchasing music online, Spotify? Are you purchasing anything online, software on Amazon? Are you streaming movies or music online? The Netflix, of course, because you pay a subscription for Netflix. So every month when you pay a subscription for Netflix, then there will be an additional VAT charge. Are you buying content online? Are you accessing databases, books online? For as long as you're accessing any service or purchasing anything online through a platform and paying for it, that is when the VAT would apply. So simply accessing without making a payment, you're not charged.
I like that particular submission, and I just want to probe you a little bit more on that very critical element, because I'm here and I've been like so many other people who thought that, okay, now these things are going to be, for paying. Let me just get a little bit granular here. Supposing I'm in business and I'm selling some things, I'm selling them via Facebook.
Yes.
And I want more eyeballs for the products that are made available on Facebook.
Yes.
And I, pay for a Facebook ad.
Yes.
It is at that point that the VAT element comes into the picture.
Yes, it's at that point that the VAT element comes into the picture. So if you're able to get your viewers out there to see your merchandise on Facebook without boosting your page, because of course the moment you start posting items for sale, Facebook asks you to boost your page so you can get more viewers. If you're able to boost your page without paying for it, then you're not going to pay the VAT. But for as long as you pay for the service for Facebook to boost your page to viewers out there and you make a payment for it, that is when the VAT starts to apply.
I would also just like to appreciate it a little bit more from the perspective of a platform like Amazon.
Yes.
Let's suppose I've published a book.
Yes.
And I want to sell that book to the whole world, not just to my friends and family. Mm-hmm. And I make it available on Amazon.
Yes.
And is it at that point that then the VAT component has to come into the picture?
So the VAT component will come in when someone purchases that book from Amazon. So the purchaser, who is the final consumer, because as you remember, VAT is a consumption tax.
Yes, it is.
So the final consumer who goes onto Amazon to purchase that book, goes onto Apple Store, goes onto Google Store to purchase anything, is the one that's going to
for
pay
as
the
long
VAT.
as they are domiciled.
Yes, for as long as they are domiciled in Uganda. Oh, and other factors definitely, not just domicile.
We are going to appreciate all those factors in a bit. And of course, I would like to ask another straight question, and I'm probably going to turn to my friend Jesse here. And the question is simple. Who is obliged to register as a non-resident supplier
Thank you, Solomon, for
of
that
electronic
question.
services?
Well, any non-resident offering electronic services to a non-registered or a non-taxable person for VAT in Uganda is required to register for VAT. What do we mean exactly?
Precisely, because I was going to tell you that.
So
that's
who is
the
a
lawyer
non-taxable
version.
person? That's a person of you and me.
Final consumer.
Who is a final consumer? Someone who is not registered for VAT with you at the moment. Also, a business can be a non-taxable person. That business is not registered for VAT. For example, if Jesse is accessing services from Facebook, as rightly asked with Jolly here recently, Jesse that non-resident will charge Jesse VAT. So imply that Facebook has to register because they're offering a service to Jesse. Then also, Facebook, Google, Apple, Amazon are not present in Uganda. They don't reside in Uganda, and they're offering electronic services. Then they are required to register and account for VAT. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for making that clarity. Does this extend also to softwares? I just had to throw it in there.
Yes. Now, when you asked initially what is the scope of the VAT on non-residents, the scope is provided for You see, there are electronic services. Yes. When I access a software, when I provide a software to non-residents in Uganda, yes, I'll be required as well to register for VAT. Now, for a non-resident to be registered in Uganda, has to provide electronic services. But there are services that are exempt. Yes, that do not require an entity to register, however much they are providing an electronic service, because they are already exempt as per our VAT region. Yes.
We shall get to appreciate those items at a particular point, but for now, I would just like to request you to speak to the simple matter of registration. How does a non-resident supplier of electronic services in Uganda register for VAT? Because, I mean, the guy is not here.
Yes, that's rightly said. Just like a local, or I would say a resident taxpayer who is obliged to register for VAT, a non-resident also is required to register for VAT. How? On the portal, area portal, there is, you go to access the portal, a non-resident will require to access the portal. They have access to the portal because it's online. And then they will have to go to e-services, click on e-services. Now, under e-services, once you click, they are provided with a tab under payments that when we click on that tab, automatically it takes them to window for registering for VAT. However, that tab is actually on the portal, but only available to non-residents. So we don't expect a resident to use that portal to register for VAT. It's strictly for non-residents. It's actually very clear. It's for registration for quarterly VAT. Yes.
Amazing stuff. And by extension, I mean, by the time that people are now receiving notifications about the VAT component, it speaks to the fact that quite a number of these players have actually gone ahead to register, and they are already complying.
Yes, that's very true. Initially, this process began with, of course, having engagements with those non-residents, encouraging them to register voluntarily. And these engagements have actually yielded results. We have listed quite a number of engagements with them, specifically, of course, online, because they are not resident in Uganda, so we have to conduct online meetings. Now, in registering, we also registered quite a number of entities, among them being, we have Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, LinkedIn, Google, Microsoft, Meta, that's understood as Facebook. So there are quite a number, and we are still actually engaging most that they can register. And so we are actually seeing some good results in the registration process as well.
Fantastic. You're getting them online?
Yes, please.
To tax them for
online
offering online
on
services.
the register.
Yes.
I like that. I like the sound of that. The next question goes straight to Jolly.
Yes.
And it is a question on VAT. You know, for residents, there's a very clear threshold that businesses must meet as a condition for them to, register for VAT.
Yes.
And that threshold is 150 million annually
in
a year. Is that relevant to also non-resident suppliers of electronic services?
So thank you, Solomon. And yes, the VAT rules that apply to residents, so persons carrying on business in Uganda, are almost similar to the VAT rules that apply to non-residents. So non-residents as well will have to meet a threshold for them to be compulsorily registered for VAT in Uganda. So yes, the threshold is 150 million or 37 million in a 3-month period, and that's the same threshold that applies to non-residents. So a non-resident providing digital services or electronic services in Uganda that meets the threshold either in a yearly period or in a 3-month period is required to register compulsorily for VAT in Uganda. But if they do not meet the threshold, but they feel like they want to comply, then they may also go under voluntary registration, just like a resident, and register for VAT.
Interesting, because now that was my next question, and you smuggled the question in there. But just for clarity,
yes,
if you can, what are there some benefits that come with that?
With voluntary compliance?
Yeah.
Yes, there are benefits that come with voluntary compliance because then the taxman is able to know the business that you're doing in Uganda and support you on the journey of compliance because you may not meet the threshold in the first 3 months, but then you hit the threshold in the next 3 months. So if you voluntarily register for VAT, then we'll be able to guide you on the steps that you can take on how to register, give you a client relationship manager so that at the point when you actually meet the threshold, it's a seamless procedure and you're able to actually comply without difficulties.
You basically just finesse compliance the way Arsenal finesses football lately.
Don't be bad like that.
I had to throw it in there, you know.
The Arsenal supporters are not very happy to them when
well, here I am, one happy Ghana.
Yes,
Jesse, Jolly has spoken to the similarities between the VAT guidelines for resident and non-resident VAT taxpayers, if I may. And that begs me to ask you a question to do with the obligation to file a return. Now, for residents, it's a monthly thing. Actually, by 15th, this is like 2 days ago,
yes,
the returns should have been filed for the month of February. Of course, there was an extension because of portal issues. URA felt the need to give people an extra day, and that day was yesterday, so people were able to, you know, fulfill their obligation to file the monthly VAT returns. What is the case for our friends who are not necessarily here in Uganda?
Okay. Thank you, Solomon. Now, for non-residents, just like a resident taxpayer, you're required to file your VAT return by the 15th day of a given month. However, for non-residents, the difference is they file the returns on a quarterly basis. That is, in a year we have 4 quarters. So implying that a non-resident will be required to file 4 returns for a given year. And the quarters are, of course, we have Jan to March, April to June, July, September, October to December. So they will be required to file on the 15th day of the month following the end of that quarter. So for example, the quarter we've just ended, that is Jan to March. So they were required to file on 15th of April 2023. However, just like you have said that recently we extended for the local taxpayers.
Yes.
Then also the non-residents have that right. We can also extend. However, for them at the moment, the extensions are for them to apply for that extension through an email because at the moment we get online e-tax. But they can actually apply as well for extending that filing deadline. And yes, why the question also would be that why are we giving them a quota to file the returns?
For sure, why a quota? Yet for us it's month on month.
So why we're having a quota is because of the bulk of information that they have to file. Yes? Imagine someone who has, let's get an example of Meta. The bulk of accounts that they have, that they charge for accessing their services, they're quite substantial. So having that person,
hundreds of thousands.
Yes, so having that person file that bulk of information just after 15 days after that month's end is quite humongous. At the same time, it is practice out there to give them substantial time to actually in various jurisdictions other than Uganda alone. They're in different countries, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and all over the world. So they require some bit of time to file those returns. So that is the background to the quota basically.
The taxman offered them a quota because he's human and he understands that.
You take it that way, but also that's provided for in the law.
100%.
Yes.
Well, how do they do it? Like, how does a non-resident supplier file his or her returns? I mean, they're not here.
Yes.
So how do they get it done?
Just the way that URA adopted the online mechanism for the local taxpayers, it's the same for the non-residents. So the process they go through to register is the same process they have to go through to file a return. Now, on the URA portal, as I earlier said that you log on to the portal. Of course, they don't have accounts at the moment, so they're using the portal as it is on the face of it. So they'll log on to they'll go to URA portal, go to e-services, then under payments, because their returns are linked to a payment automatically. So once they click on that tab under payments, it will prompt them first of all to register. So if you're already registered, you'll say I have it. It will ask you have a TIN, you'll say yes. So when you say yes, automatically it pops up a window for filing the return. And that filing of the return is summarized. It is not as detailed as that of a local taxpayer. The information required is very minimal. It is just the name of the entity, business they deal in, what quote are they filing for, how much are they going to charge, or how much are they going to remit to URA and submit. Now, how they file the return is just the normal way a local tax, just at the difference.
And I speak to the huge matter of ensuring compliance.
Yes.
For the locals, as who are here, I mean, you can come to my store and you can have that difficult conversation with me, eyeball to eyeball, and you can ask me for specifics. Yes. The conversation can go a bit deeper because I'm available. Yes. But here is the one matter who is not available to you, at least physically. How do you handle the issue of compliance? How do you ensure their compliance?
Okay, that's a good question, Solomon, and that's a question that so many people have been asking us. How are you going to make sure that these people comply with your tax laws? How do you ensure that they give you accurate information, that you're able to collect the correct taxes and in the correct time? So one thing you should know, Solomon, is that most of these entities are big entities. They're multinationals. They operate in so many jurisdictions around the world. Uganda is just a small portion of what they're handling. So they've got a reputation to protect. They have an image to protect, and the last thing they need is for someone in Uganda saying that they're not compliant with their taxes. Of course, they've had a little backlash over the years from different countries saying that they're not paying a fair share of tax. So they have a reputation to protect, and they need to be compliant. So there's that angle to look at it from. But also, we are requiring these entities to provide us with some level of transaction details. So at the point when they're filing their returns, we require them to give us details, especially for the business-to-business transactions. That is the transactions between, let's say, Meta and a business entity in Uganda that is using Meta as a platform for advertising. You know that maybe banks like Stanbic advertise on Facebook. I've seen a lot of JESA adverts on Facebook. Those are businesses. So for such transactions, they're not required to charge VAT because it's a businessman. This businessman is expected, or this business entity is expected to be able to file a return of VAT on imported services at the end of the month. So Meta is not expected to charge VAT on that particular transaction. But at the end of the quarter, when Meta is filing their return, we expect them to give us transaction level detail. That is, whom did you make a supply to in this particular quarter? What is their TIN? What is the invoice number? How much did you invoice them? How much is the VAT that you collected? So based on that information, we call it the transaction level information, we are then able to confirm the accuracy of the declarations that these entities are making. But also, we're trying to enter into engagements with different entities that are in this value chain. So things like banks, because of course the payments go through banks. We've tried to engage BOU to try and find a way in which the three entities, URA, the banks, and BOU, can find a way of ensuring that we know how much is going out of the country and be able to collect that with the information that we get from the multinationals. And we'll be able to ensure that there's compliance and the taxes that are due to Uganda are being collected.
Sounds really elaborate, if you ask me. You guys have really, really thought about these things. But I also realize that a lot hinges on how much these guys want to protect their reputations.
Yes.
So in a way, compliance is guaranteed, depending on how important or how big this entity wants to do business in Uganda. Yes. But it brings me to another question that I would like to field to you, Jolie, and it's a question of, you've hinted on it.
Yes.
How does a non-resident supplier of electronic services determine a customer subject to VAT in Uganda? For specificity,
yes,
if you can drum it home.
Okay, so yes, that's a very good question, Solomon, as well. So how will they know that I'm in Uganda? You know, we have this whole VPN thing.
Yeah.
Yes. and people in Uganda are accessing Facebook mainly through VPN.
I mean, they're in Uganda, but they're in Switzerland.
Yeah, they're in Denmark, they're in Netherlands, yes. So that's a very good question. So we have a criteria, and this is international criteria. It's not just Uganda that's using this criteria that we follow to identify that this customer is located in Uganda and therefore liable to that particular VAT. Because again, this VAT is now almost everywhere. It's not just Uganda. Maybe in Africa it's not as widespread, but in Europe, in America, it's widespread.
It's normal.
So yes. So they've been paying this for a while. So it's not a new thing. So maybe the only thing that they need to know is which money goes to which country. Okay, if this person is saying they're in Netherlands, do we give this VAT to Netherlands or do we give it to Uganda? So there is a criteria that they're supposed to follow. One is the registration details that you provided. What address did you provide when you are registering, let's say for Netflix, or when you're registering your account on Spotify, you're registering your account on Microsoft, Apple, what address did you give them? If it's Uganda, then definitely Uganda is a country where the VAT is going to be paid. I mean, there's SCCA subscription, you know. So Uganda will be the country that you're paying the VAT. If, let's say, you didn't provide that detail, maybe the platform didn't require that detail. Some platforms don't want to know your address. Yes. Then what's the proxy that you're using? Okay, the proxy, you've been able to dodge that by using a VPN. What payment are you using? Which bank? Because most of the services are small amounts, $10, $20, $30, $50, $100, $50. So you're going to pay this using a Visa card or an ATM. So if you're using a Visa card of Centenary Bank, you're not going to say that you're in the US. No, you're going to be in Uganda.
You have to say Centenary.
Just an example. Yes, so when you're using that payment, then, I mean, you're using mobile money. Some of these platforms actually are linked to mobile money. So each of these criteria, any that throws you to Uganda, then you are Ugandan and you're going to be charged VAT, and that payment is coming from a customer in Uganda, and they'll have to remit the VAT to Uganda.
For summary purposes, you can be Ugandan by address.
Yes.
You can be Ugandan by
Proxy?
IP address.
Yes.
You can be Ugandan by payment.
Yes.
You can be Ugandan by registration.
Yes.
Tona. That's what you're saying.
We're trying.
I'm telling you, it's beautiful. I like the fact that you're able to really break it down for our viewers out there, and they're able to appreciate these elements. Yes. We are getting into the final questions that I had for you. Then we shall be picking some questions from our viewers. And I have a question here for Jesse. It's a question to do with, there's this monkey called EFRIS. It is here. And we are saying that now it's no longer about invoices. It is about e-invoices for VAT purposes. It is no longer about ordinary receipts. It's about e-receipts for VAT purposes. And I'm asking a simple question. Is this the same situation with our friends, the non-resident suppliers of electronic services?
Thank you, Solomon. If I could start by saying that the VAT regime for non-resident suppliers is meant to be simplified. So we look at simplifying the compliance for the non-residents, considering the kind of clients or taxpayers we're dealing with. So in that simplification, we opted to not have them required to actually register for IFRIS. Yes? Implying that a non-resident won't have IFRIS, and as such will not claim the input VAT that they claim. And besides, what input VAT will they be claiming here locally? So as a non-resident service provider, Meta, Facebook and all that, are required to issue what they call simplified tax invoice. What changes that they will issue a tax invoice, but not an IFRIS invoice. So they're not an IFRIS, but they issue a tax invoice. Of course, considering the current VAT law, that is not consistent with what the VAT law says as we speak now. So there's a process undergoing to have that streamlined to fit with the current VAT law, to have that specifically provided for on how we're treating the non-residents for IFRIS and the normal tax invoice. Yes, and as such, they are required to fulfill the normal or the bare minimum requirements of a tax invoice, just like a local taxpayer, but they are not on the IFRIS regime.
Fair enough. You know, there's a song where an artist said simplicity is the rule to survive, and I clearly see it being applied here, because if these guys can be enabled to comply in the simplest way possible, then I think it's a fair game, really. Nonetheless, you've submitted that remedies are being prepared to ensure that everything is provided for. We look to the future with a lot of optimism. I have just one more for Jolie, and it's a question on, you hinted on it just at some point, but I would like us to appreciate it, like in specific terms. Are there VAT exempt electronic services?
Okay, thank you, Solomon. And yes, there are VAT exempt electronic services. Like I mentioned, whatever rules apply to the residents should apply to the non-residents. Okay, so just a few simplifications here and there because of the fact that they're not in the country, but the same legal rules apply to non-residents and residents. So yes, whatever is exempt under the second schedule of the VAT Act for residents will be exempt under the VAT regime for non-residents. So things like financial services that are exempt, insurance services that are exempt under the second schedule, education services, for as long as it's exempt in the second schedule, it's also exempt for the non-residents. So if they provide any of these services, they'll be exempt from VAT, and Ugandans will not receive a VAT charge on their invoices.
Powerful. So the second schedule is where people need to go to?
Yes.
To appreciate
the exempt services that are provided for.
Then they just extend the electronic version.
To electronic services, yes.
Powerful stuff, powerful stuff. Now, my beloved Arsenal succumbed to penalties last night. And I didn't have a very good night.
We're sorry about
But it
that.
is because of that I can appreciate the pain that comes with penalties.
Yes.
Do we have penalties involved for non-compliance with VAT obligations for non-resident suppliers of electronic services?
So thank you so much. At the moment, we do not have, or we are not imposing them, because actually there are penalties already in the VAT law that actually can be issued to any VAT taxpayer for non-compliance. But at the moment, we are looking at voluntary compliance. As we earlier put it, that one, we are trying to create that kind of culture of voluntary compliance. We're trying to create simplification. We're trying to attract compliance to Uganda, to show them actually we do not actually have to go for penalties if someone does not file a return, doesn't pay in time. We understand that there will be challenges here and there, so we are trying to use the carrot as opposed to a stick at the moment. So at the moment, there is no implementation of any kind of penalty on non-residents. We encourage them that in any case of a challenge of late filing, late payment, they let us know. We assist them in any way possible. And of course, as we all know that these are entities that we're doing everything online. So they can be delayed. For example, a payment can be made at their side, but the reflection on our bank account may delay.
May delay, yes.
So we can't just rush to penalize. There are those instances. So we have to understand such situations.
Some flexibility.
Yes. So even in terms of registration, they have to organize their systems, prepare their systems to link with ours. It takes a bit of time, so we need to understand and appreciate all that. That's why at the moment there's no penalty regime for the non-resident suppliers.
At the moment they are having it easy, they are not going
like
to suffer
Arsenal.
like that London team that I love so much. But penalties are things that people should be able to avoid.
Yes.
By all means, and that means you should be able to score the goals.
Yes.
And finish the game.
But
in the
they are
90s.
really embracing this. When we've not had a lot of pushback, the only problem that they seem to have is the amount of time that it takes them to have their systems, of course, aligned with the URA systems. But at least most of the non-residents that we've been able to engage, they're willing and to support URA, they're willing to collect and remit their due share, but it's just, of course, the process and procedures that are still a problem, but we are working on that as URA, and we'll make sure that everyone is able to comply in the simplest way possible.
Fantastic. Now I have a question that I would just like to float before we get any questions, depending on what my producer furnishes me with in terms of questions that are coming in from the audience. It's a question, okay, I just want us to give flowers where flowers should be given.
Yeah.
And the question then says, who are, quote unquote, the pioneers? Or should I say, the first embracers, the people who jumped onto this thing? the viewers are tuned in and they would like to appreciate some of these brands, because someone could be there and they're thinking, how can, like, URA, for instance, get tax from Meta? Like, it seemed improbable 2 years ago, but yet today we probably have them complying. So if you can drop some names of brands that people should appreciate.
Okay. I'll start with the first initial embracers of this VAT regime was Apple. So whoever has an iPhone, an Apple Watch, and an Apple product, yes. So Apple was the first, one of the first entities to embrace this, and they were able to contact us before we could contact them.
Apple is huge.
Yes, they came in and told us, we have heard about this through the auditors, and we want to comply. So they're the first embracers, and then of course we have ACCA. So many URA staff will appreciate that, and so many Ugandans out there that are subscribed to ACCA. They're one of the very first entities to join the VAT regime and register and actually start paying. Even before we went online, they were already registering and paying for this VAT regime. So Apple, ACCA were the very first entities to join the VAT regime. So then along the way, after a series of engagements, then we had Meta come on board, we had
Meta,
Zoom come on board,
Uber.
Netflix. We've had a very good communication relationship with Netflix. So Netflix is on board, Uber is on board, Bolt is on board. So yeah, a couple of entities have joined the regime right now. So we have about 16 entities, Amazon, that have registered, and we are trying to get the rest on board. LinkedIn, Airbnb, we are still in engagements, but yes, we have a good number of them.
I must say it's looking good.
It is.
It is looking good. It is looking good.
I go, it was improbable, but I mean, here we are, and I think it can only get better from here. Let's see if we do have some questions that are coming in from the public. If we do have some, we can flag them. If we don't have a couple of them, I guess we can call it a show, but of course not before you guys are able to give your parting shots.
Okay.
Yeah, but my producer will guide me. If there's anything that can be flagged, we shall be able to put it up there, and we appreciate it. We shall give it a minute. I'm looking at the chat room and I'm seeing something in there. These seem to be comments. Michael Muchibi, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for alerting us that the volume was low at some point, and we were able to fix it thanks to you. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for learning something. Let me check out our Twitter platform, see if there's something there. I didn't want to ask the question of the hard ones, really, because where there are flowers, then there should also be some thorns, but I think we shall leave the thorns for another show.
We'll be back.
The beauty is that you guys are going to be back, and we shall get to appreciate even the thorns.
Yes.
But for now, it's looking really positive.
Yeah.
Is there something that you have up your sleeve or on your chest that you feel you've not mentioned here? Just a small element that people must appreciate about this VAT regime.
Maybe I'll go first.
Please, just.
Our viewers, first of all, we'd like to thank you for being part of the show and listening to us on this topic about non-residents. We'd like to employ you, because we know the non-residents are going to request for your tax identification numbers, so that they can either determine either they can charge VAT or not. So we request that when you are dealing with these non-resident service providers, kindly have your tax identification numbers ready with you, available with you, and share with them accurate information, so that they can also take the right decision at the point of remitting VAT to us or VAT to URA. That's my take at the moment.
Thank you so much for that take, Jesse. Jolly, if you have.
Oh, well, just probably to try and explain this in the simplest way possible, because of course I know that paying tax is not something that many people like to do, but I think I need viewers out there, Ugandans out there, to understand that the main reason that we had to charge VAT on digital services is to try and create some sort of fairness, because the residents were paying, but the non-residents were not paying. So of course, then you have the residents that are competing unfavorably with the non-residents. So to make it equitable, to make it fair, we had to introduce the VAT so that across all platforms, whether it's a resident platform or a non-resident platform, everyone is competing favorably. So it's not some sort of tax that came out of nowhere, but it was in the law. It simply wasn't being implemented at the time when it was introduced. And this time around, we're saying, let's do it right, let's do it fair, and let everyone be able to pay their fair share of tax.
Thank you so much, Jolie, for that. I guess at this very minute, I can invite you to give your parting shots, and we shall call it a show. I'll start with the lady.
Thank you, Solomon, for hosting us, and thank you, our viewers out there who have been tuned in for the show. I hope you've learned something. And for any other questions that you may have, staff in URA, staff outside URA, feel free to contact us. Feel free to send in your questions. If there's something you don't understand, we'll be able to respond in due time. And thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you so much, our viewers. Thank you so much for hosting us. It has been a great show, and we hope something has been taken home for everyone who has been viewing the show. And wish you all the best. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much. For comfort purposes, in case you have missed this live broadcast, you are able to play catch up via our YouTube channel. You just need to go to YouTube, you check out URA TV, you'll find this episode of the Live Tax Lounge, and you'll be able to binge on it. Learn everything that you can from this particular episode, because in case you're to receive that email pop-up from any of these suppliers, you shouldn't get shocked, because our friends here have been breaking it down for us. And I think we are able now to appreciate exactly why URA has taken this direction. It pays to pay. It helps when everyone that should be contributing something is able to contribute something. That's the only way we can grow the country. And I just want to appreciate our experts for making the time to come on the show and sharing all this content that they've been able to share. I also want to salute the URA TV production team, the guys that you never get to see. We have Irene Kabakama in the room, we have Trevor in the room, we have Ebenezer in the room, and our head production, Bosco Omaria, for this particular episode. From all of us at URA TV, to all of you, adios. Enjoy your Friday.
Amazina ganje ne banyita Nasasera Venancio, umurimo gukora ni nkora umurimo gwa music library ni sara aba customer banje amabare obwesongoro ni nkora mutawune je yantara twe ni mpura URA ne iza ati kwebe ne iza tuchinga maduka twesereka konkati twaza kura bizana batusomesa kugira ngo nibenda kutuhereza tine namba ne yabusha deni umbwira bwo miso tubende sasura je musoro yitu tutari kugira ngo twesereke biza basanga amaduka gigwire buri mayine cyayine kwenda niza base kufuna tine namba nko kuba tusobora kugira ngo nibenda kutumenda sasure misoro ya URA tutari kugira